Welcome to part 2 of how to build a web app using Python and Flask framework. In today's session, we are going to use databases. Databases are used for saving data. So your website may have information which you may type in and you want to show it again to other users. So databases allow you to save them information and then render it again when requested by a user. So let's go and see how we can use databases. As the name says, database, it is used for storing the data if we want to keep some information in our app to stay for a long time. There are some of the popular databases like Oracle, Microsoft SQL, MySQL, Postgres. For our tutorial, we are going to use SQLite. SQLite comes bundled with Python. So there is no additional setup. It's a very lightweight and very easy to use database. So we'll get started. First thing we are going to do is to create a SQL file which we'll use to create a table. We'll call the file called db.sql, and in that we are going to create one table. Create table. Let's call it people. We'll add auto increment ID, which would be primary key. I won't go into details of database. I assume you are familiar with database. If you want to learn more, you can look at other tutorials. I can share some resources. We'll add the name. So the table will correspond to the form we used last time. If you remember, we created a form where we had the name and the state of residence. I'll quickly show the form so that you get idea of what I'm talking about. Right, this is name and state of residence. So we are going to enter the same information and save it. So the table corresponds to the data being entered. So we'll add a name column, which is a type text, and we want it to be not null. And next column will be state of residence. It is again text and not null. If you are okay with keeping it null, it's your choice whether you want the information to be mandatory or not. If it's mandatory, good idea to make it null. Let's save this. Now there are two ways you can run the SQL file. You can run over command line. In our tutorial, I am going to create a Python script to run that. So with this, I'll create another Python file. I'll call it init.db so that you know it's for initializing your database, which in our case is creating the table. So first thing we want to do is we want to import SQLite package. If you are using some other database, you may want to find corresponding package. If it's Oracle, look for an Oracle package. From Flask. Okay. This is just to get an idea. If you want to integrate this along with your Flask app, you can use the init code as part of it. It's not needed to run our initialization script. We'll create a variable called database. It's a good idea. So if you want to reuse it in different methods or functions, you can use the same name. and this we'll call it myapp.db. Feel free to pick any other name you want like. And let's create a function def init db, and we'll create an instance variable called SQLite3 dot connect, and in this case we are going to use the variable we used to store. This will give us an instance or a handle to the database file myapp.db. So next step would be to read the file where we stored the SQL, which is db.sql. So we'll with app.open resource db. So our file name is db.sql. The mode is read only, right? As f, that's the file handle. We'll read everything in a string. Now if you want to print the SQL, you can write a print statement SQL. So this will help you understand, whatever it's reading, the content is same as db SQL. Next would be to run the statement. So let's get a cursor to it. Dot execute SQL. Now because we are doing create insert, anytime you do it, it's good idea to do a commit. Commit allows us to save the information permanently. And last thing, we're gonna close it. There you go. That's all it is to create the table. Now let's run it. If name equals a, so we're gonna run this one. Now let's run this file, run edit db. Near auto create. So it's saying we got some error. Auto in create. Okay, so we have a typo and it should be auto increment. We corrected that. Let's run the initdb again. There you go, it finished. And as we see over here, we see myapp.db, the file is created. The next step would be to use the form to save the information. So let's get back to our myflaskapp.py, and in that we were adding the profile. So this was the one where the form was being prompted and we were adding the data. So in this case, we read the name and the state of residence from the HTML form. So this is a good place where we would save the information. But before we save, we have to do a couple of imports. And so let's import SQLite3 over here. Right. And let's create a nice helper function which will create our database instead of typing it again and again. So we'll create a small helper method, connect db, and all it's gonna do is return handle to our database. as we saw in the other file. Let's create a variable to hold the database name, and which is myapp.db. Right? So let's go back to our add profile where we are reading the form variables. We'll get the connect DB. Let's get the connection handle. Let's create a SQL. SQL equals insert into people. That was a table name we created. We are saying what do we want to insert? State of residence, values, now this question mark means we are creating a placeholder for, and we'll pass them as values. This is a SQL thing. If you're not familiar with, you can learn with database concepts. And here we are going to pass those values. In our case, this is my name and state of residence. Did db.execute. After db.execute, do a commit to make sure data gets saved, and finally close. So let's run this just to see if we are it saves the data. Here we'll do my add profile form, right? So in this, let's add a name called Andy. Let's say Andy lives in Arizona. We'll submit it. So it redirected to the my profile page. Now it doesn't tell whether the data was really saved or not. So if that's the case, we want to know where is our data. So one good place would be whenever we are going to the home page or the slash or root mapping, and in this case this is the index function. This is a good place where we can show list of all the name which we have added. So let's start adding some code to it. Again, we go do db connect db. Next step would be to get the list of all the data stored. So we'll do execute and we'll do select name state of underscore from people. That's where we saved it, right? Now let's store all the data we fetched in entries. The way to do is, we'll store it in a dictionary. Name equals row 0 residence equals row 1. Got it. For row in fetch all. That's all. Right. If we want to verify what's the content, let's do add a print statement. There you go. It should print the stuff on the console, the system out, and that's all to it. We close the database handle. Now, in this case, we were returning hello from Flask. What we want to do is we want to create a file where we can render the list, right? So let's say we have a return render template. We'll call it profile list.html. And in this, we are going to pass entries. Right? It means we get rid of this. We don't need it. I'm also going to get rid of it because this was just to get understanding of the mapping. It's not really required right now. So we got this. Another thing is we want to create profile list.html. So let's create a HTML file. We'll create a new HTML file. We'll call it profile list.html. Actually, it should be in the templates directory. So let's move it to templates directory. Right. We'll give the title profile list. And in the body, we are just going to, you can create tables, however you want it. We'll just show the information as lists. So the way to add data and show in the Flask is, it's in the curly bracket with percentage for entry in entries. If you remember, this was the variable we were passing, right? Now we'll add a HTML code. So li, so all the information, in this case, the name and residence. So again, entry dot name. This entry is this variable, and as you know, all the entries would have name and state of residence. Right? We'll just keep it simple. Now we should, in case there is no data, we can also capture a condition where, so just print a message in case you have no data. Unbelievable. We could not find any people information or slash data, if you like to call it. Typo, right? So, and then else, let's close it. There you go. This completes our HTML. Let's restart it and see what we find. It could not connect to the server. Let's see what went wrong. Did we start? It did not start. Okay, started now. Click on it. So we see it's showing Andy. This was the username we entered, but it's not showing the state of residence. So looks like we have a problem in our data. So let's do, oh, we missed the variable name. Okay, this, let's look at it if it fixes. Awesome. So we'll add another value. Name is, let's say, Lucy. She lives in Nevada. Submit it. My name is Lucy. I live in Nevada. And if we go to the home page, there you go. We see Lucy. Now you can enhance form, and then add links to add form, list people on top of it. so that you have easy accessible links. Thank you for watching my video. I hope this helps you get started with integrating databases with your apps. In next session, we will learn how to update the data and delete records if we entered, mistakenly, or someone left your organization, or they moved to a different school. It's a good way to update. Someone changed their mobile phone. You can change the information. So stay tuned to part 3. Thank you for watching.